Paul lived on a small human outpost near the far rim of known space. The station was not beautiful, not rich, and not famous. It was built of steel, patched in many places, and smelled of old machines. Still, Paul loved it because it was his home. He worked as a mechanic, fixing broken tools, damaged ships, and anything that used wires and gears. He was not a soldier or a leader. He was simply a man who knew how to make things work again. The outpost was quiet most nights. Traders sometimes docked their ships, bringing food, metals, or stories from far systems. Most left quickly, never staying long. The crew of the station was small. Only a handful of humans who trusted each other because there was no one else to trust. Paul liked that. Life was simple, but on this night life became different. A cargo vessel arrived slower than usual. Its hull had burn marks as if it had escaped a fight. The traders inside were tense and nervous. They asked for food and repairs, but they also brought something else. They carried a figure wrapped in a silver blanket. She looked small and weak, like she had lost too much strength. When they laid her on the medical table, Paul saw she was not human. Her skin had a pale blue glow, faint like moonlight. Strange marks ran along her arms, shining as if drawn with fire. Her hair was white and soft, falling over her shoulders like snow. Most striking were her eyes, wide and bright but filled with silence. She looked at the humans without a word. The traders said they had found her drifting in a small escape pod. She had refused food, refused to speak, and never gave her name. They brought her here because they did not know what else to do. Paul watched her. She was alive, but there was a sadness around her that felt heavy. The crew tried to talk to her, but she only looked away. No matter what language they tried, English, trade codes, or simple signals, she gave no answer. "She's hiding something," said Mira, the medic. "But I don't know what." Paul nodded. He could see it too. This girl carried a secret, and he wanted to know it. That night, Paul could not sleep. He thought about her eyes. They were not just silent. They were trapped. He knew she wanted to speak, but something stopped her. Maybe she did not know human words. Maybe she feared they would not believe her. Maybe she carried a story too dangerous to share. Paul sat at his workbench, surrounded by metal parts, old circuits, and broken wires. His fingers moved without rest. An idea grew in his mind, something only he could build. He wanted to give the girl a voice, even if she could not speak their tongue. He began crafting a translator. It was not perfect. The device was small, made from spare parts of ship radios, communication chips, and a cracked data core. He shaped it into a round module with a soft glow. The plan was simple. The machine would record her sounds, analyze patterns, and translate them into human speech. It would not be fast at first, but it might be enough to break her silence. Paul worked for hours. The hum of the outpost engines mixed with the click of his tools. Sweat ran down his face, but he kept going. For him, it was more than a project. It was hope. By morning, the device was ready. He called it the voice bridge. He walked into the medical bay where the girl still rested. Mira looked at him with tired eyes. "You stayed up all night again, didn't you?" She said. Paul only smiled. He held up the device. "Maybe this can help," Mira frowned. "Do you think she'll use it?" Paul shrugged. "We won't know until we try." He stepped closer to the girl. Her eyes lifted, meeting his. He knelt so his face was level with hers and showed her the translator. He spoke softly, careful not to frighten her. "This is for you. It can help us understand you. If you want to speak, you can try through this." The girl's eyes narrowed. She looked at the device as if judging it. Her hands trembled slightly, but she reached out. Her fingers, glowing faintly, touched the module. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she pressed it to her chest and let out a sound. It was not human. It was soft, flowing, almost like a song. The translator hummed, lights flickering as it processed the sound. Then a mechanical voice spoke in English, my name. "Lyra," the crew gasped. Paul's heart leaped. The device worked. The silent girl had spoken. Lyra's voice through the translator was quiet but steady. She said only her name, yet it carried weight. Paul smiled at her. "Lyra, that's a good name. Thank you for trusting us." Her eyes softened as if a heavy wall had cracked. For the first time, she looked less like a prisoner and more like a person. But even as relief filled the room, Paul noticed something else. Her eyes still carried fear. She had spoken, yes, but she had not told her whole story. The secret was still there, hiding beneath her words. And Paul knew that whatever truth she carried, It was big enough to reach even this far edge of human space. The outpost crew looked at Paul, waiting for his next move. He only nodded. He had given Lyra a voice. Now he had to give her time. He did not know that her story would soon shake the station. He did not know that others were already searching for her. He did not know that the knock on the door was coming. But he knew one thing. Humanity had been given a chance to stand beside someone who needed them. And Paul was ready. The small medical bay of the outpost was suddenly alive with new energy. The crew stood in stunned silence after hearing the mechanical voice repeat the alien girl's words. For days she had been silent, her eyes filled with secrets, but now she had spoken. Even if her words came through a rough device built from scraps, they carried power. She had a name. Her name was Lyra. Paul stared at the translator in awe. His hands, still dirty with grease from building the machine, trembled slightly. The hours of sleepless work had been worth it. The girl had trusted his invention enough to speak through it. That was no small thing. Did everyone hear that? Mira asked, her voice tight with disbelief. Yes, Paul said softly, though his gaze never left Lyra. The others whispered among themselves. Some were curious, some wary, but all knew something important had just happened. Lyra had gone from a silent mystery to someone real. Paul crouched again so he was closer to her. Lyra, he said gently, you can talk with us now. Do you want to tell us more? Lyra held the translator close, her glowing fingers wrapped tightly around it. Her lips moved and a soft alien sound came out. The machine clicked and processed before the voice spoke again. I am in danger. The words chilled the room. The traders who had found her shifted uncomfortably. Mira frowned and folded her arms. Paul felt his chest tighten. In danger? Paul asked. From who? Lyra looked around the room, her bright eyes scanning each face. She seemed to measure their worth, deciding if they were worthy of trust. Then she spoke again, her alien tones breaking through the translator. My home is not safe. I left because they will find me. If they find me here, you will suffer. The humans exchanged looks. Her words were heavy. This was not a lost traveler, not a random refugee. She carried something that reached beyond the small outpost. Why would anyone want to hurt you? Mira asked carefully. Lyra's shoulders stiffened. Her eyes lowered. For a moment, Paul thought she would close off again, sink back into silence. But then she lifted her head and the translator gave her answer. I was born in the palace, she said. The words struck the room like a stone dropped into still water. A palace meant royalty, power, and politics far beyond what this lonely outpost had ever seen. Paul blinked. Palace, you mean you are daughter of queen, Lyra said firmly. But I am not safe. My mother listens to lies. My people think I will marry king from far empire. It is not truth. It is trap. She clutched the translator harder, her voice trembling with raw fear even through the machine. If I marry him, my people lose freedom. He wants to rule us. My mother believes him, but he is lying. I ran away before it was too late. The medical bay was silent again, but now the silence was heavy with meaning. The outpost crew had heard many strange stories from traders, but nothing like this. Before them sat a runaway princess from a distant empire, holding secrets of kings and queens. And she had chosen to reveal them here, to a handful of humans living on the edge of nowhere. Mira exhaled slowly. This is dangerous. If she is telling the truth, her pursuers could come here. They will, Lyra said. They will come. I cannot return. Paul studied her face, the glow of her skin, the fire in her eyes, the fear she could not hide. He believed her. Not because she was royalty, but because he had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who wanted freedom, someone cornered by powers stronger than herself. Why trust us? Paul asked. We are strangers to you. Lyra tilted her head, her voice soft but clear. Humans are different. Stories of humans reach far, strong, wild, not afraid. I hoped you would listen. I hoped you would help. Her words sent a quiet stir through the crew. They were not soldiers or rulers, just workers and traders. Yet this girl spoke as if humanity itself was a force she could lean on. Paul felt a strange pride rise inside him. Humans had many flaws, but they were not weak. They did not bend easily to kings or queens. And now that strength was what Lyra sought. Mira sighed. If she stays, the outpost becomes a target. If she leaves, she could be captured. Either way, this is trouble. Paul stood, his voice firm. She stays. The others looked at him in shock. "You can't decide that alone," one of the traitors protested. Paul faced them calmly. "She needs us. If what she says is true, handing her over would mean giving her to those who lie and enslave. That is not who we are. Not as humans." Lyra's eyes widened. She stared at him as if weighing every word. Slowly, she nodded, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. That moment, fragile as it was, marked the beginning of trust. Over the next hours, Paul worked to refine the translator. Lyra spoke more, testing words and phrases. The device stumbled often, sometimes turning her alien speech into broken sentences, but the meaning shone through. With each attempt, her confidence grew. She told small things about her world, how the skies were green with light, how cities floated on rivers of glass, how her people sang instead of using bells to mark time. Yet behind these wonders, her fear never vanished. She always circled back to the same warning. The guards of the Empire would search for her, and they would not stop until she was found. Paul listened closely. Every detail painted a larger picture. Lyra was not simply running away from family duty. She was resisting a future where her people became prisoners of another ruler's ambition. That made her more than a princess. It made her a rebel. By the end of the day, the crew gathered in the mess hall. The translator rested on the table while Lyra sat with her hands folded. She looked smaller now, as if the weight of her words had drained her. "We must decide what to do," Mira said. Paul leaned forward. "There is no choice. She asked for help, and we are human. We give it." "Paul," Mira said gently, "do you understand what you're saying? If her enemies come here, they will bring war. We cannot fight war." Paul's jaw tightened. "Then we fight the way humans always do. With what we have. With what we are." Lyra looked at him again, her glowing eyes filled with quiet wonder. She had crossed stars to escape a trap. Now she had found something else. Not soldiers, not rulers, but humans who refused to bow. Before anyone could argue further, the station's warning alarm rang. A deep echoing sound shook the walls. Red lights flashed across the corridors. Everyone froze. Paul's heart raced. He knew that sound well. It was the docking alarm. A ship had arrived without sending a friendly signal. The crew rushed to the main console. The sensors displayed a sharp, dark vessel sliding into position outside the station. Its hull bore strange markings, Mira whispered. "That is not a trader ship." Lyra stood behind them, her face pale. She did not need the translator this time. Her own voice, soft but broken, escaped her lips. "They found me." The sound of heavy metal boots echoed down the docking bay. The knock on the outpost door had come. The sound of boots against metal echoed through the docking bay. Each step was heavy, sharp, and filled with purpose. The crew of the outpost stood frozen as the pressure of the moment grew. The vessel outside had arrived with no warning, and now its soldiers were inside. Paul stood near the entrance of the mess hall, his fists clenched. His eyes moved to Lyra, who stood in the corner with the translator pressed tightly to her chest. Her glowing eyes were wide with fear, but she did not run. She watched the corridor as if she already knew who had come. The metal door slid open and 4 figures stepped inside. They were tall, armored in dark plates that reflected the flashing red lights of the outpost. Their helmets hid their faces, but their posture was enough to show who they were. "Royal Guards," the leader raised a hand. His voice was deep and commanding, carrying through the translator strapped to his arm. "We search for one who belongs to the throne. She is here. Give her to us and no harm will come to this place." The words struck like ice. The traitors who had brought Lyra shifted uneasily. Mira placed a hand on Paul's arm as if warning him not to act too quickly. The outpost was small and these soldiers were trained. A fight would not be easy. Paul's gaze remained on Lyra. Her body trembled, but her eyes burned with a mix of fear and defiance. She knew these soldiers well. She whispered into her device and the translator spoke for her. "They are my mother's guards. They serve her, but also serve the king who lies. They came to drag me back." The guards turned their heads toward her voice. Their leader stepped forward. "Princess Lyra, you must return. Your duty is to your people. You cannot stay with these humans." Paul felt anger rise inside him. He had listened to her story, heard the truth of her escape, and seen the fire of freedom in her. To him, these guards were not protectors. They were hunters sent to bind her again. Before he could speak, Lyra lifted the translator to her lips. Her voice came through steady despite her fear. My duty is not to chains. My duty is not to lies. If I return, my people will lose everything. I will not go with you. Her words cut through the air like a blade. The guards stiffened, their leader's hand tightening into a fist. You cannot defy your queen. You cannot defy the king. Come now, or we will take you by force. The crew of the outpost shifted nervously. None of them had expected to face royal soldiers, but Paul stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the guards. You heard her, Paul said firmly. She will not go with you, and humans do not give up those who ask for our help. The guards turned to him, their helmets hiding their eyes, but their body language was clear. They did not take his words as a threat. They took them as foolish. Human, the leader said coldly. You do not understand the power you resist. She is ours. Step aside. Paul's jaw tightened. She is not yours. She is her own. The tension thickened. The crew whispered in fear. A single wrong move could bring blood. Before the guards could act, Lyra's voice rose again through the translator. I will tell them the truth. I will tell them why I ran. She stepped out from behind Paul, holding herself tall, though her body shook. Her glowing skin lit the room with a faint light as she spoke, each word carrying through the machine. My mother, the queen, believes the words of the foreign king. He promised peace. He promised alliance. But his promise is false. He wants control. If I marry him, he will gain power over my people. He will take our freedom. I saw it in his counsel. I heard it in his hidden words. He does not come for love. He comes for conquest, the crew gasped. Even the traitors, who had only thought her a strange runaway, now saw the greater danger. Lyra's eyes shone with fierce determination. I ran because I will not be his key. I ran because I will not be the chain on my people. I ran because truth is stronger than fear. Her words filled the room with fire. Even the humans, who had little stake in alien politics, felt the weight of her choice. She was no longer only a silent girl. She was a voice of resistance against a throne. The guards remained unmoved. Their leader raised his weapon, a long staff crackling with energy. Your truth is rebellion. Your rebellion is treason. You will come with us now. Paul stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Lyra. If you want her, you'll have to go through us. The guards shifted their stance, preparing to strike, but Mira quickly raised her hands. Wait, violence here will destroy us all. This outpost cannot take battle. Let us talk. For a moment, silence held. The guards lowered their weapons slightly, though their posture stayed tense. Paul used the pause to glance at Lyra. She met his eyes. In that instant, he understood her better than words could explain. She had run not only for herself, but for every voice her people had lost. She needed someone to stand beside her, someone who would not bend. He thought of humanity, scattered, stubborn, and unyielding. This was their nature, and he realized that Lyra had chosen the right place to run. The leader of the guards finally spoke again, his voice sharp. You delay what cannot be stopped. More will come. This outpost cannot resist forever, Paul replied calmly. Then we will resist as long as we must, because freedom is worth the fight. The guards turned, retreating toward their ship, but not in surrender. Their parting words were cold. We will return, and when we do, no human strength will save her. The door closed behind them. The alarms faded, leaving the crew in uneasy silence. Lyra exhaled, her body trembling as if she had held her breath through the entire encounter. She sat down, the translator resting on her lap. Paul crouched beside her. You were brave, he said softly. She shook her head. I was only honest. Brave is what you did, Paul smiled faintly. We are human. We don't abandon those who stand for truth. Her eyes softened, filled with gratitude and something deeper. Respect. For the first time, she felt she was not alone in her fight. Later that night, the crew gathered again. They knew the guards would not stop. They knew more soldiers, maybe even fleets, would follow. But the choice was clear. Lyra had revealed the truth. And now, the humans of the outpost had to decide if they would carry that truth with her. Paul stood before them all, grease still on his hands, his face lit with quiet fire. She is not only a runaway, she is a voice that must be heard. If we let them take her back, we bury that voice forever. We are human. We know what it means to fight for freedom. So we fight for hers. The room filled with murmurs. Fear was strong, but so was pride. Slowly, one by one, heads nodded. Lyra watched them, her glowing eyes wet with unspoken emotion. She whispered into the translator, and her words came out soft but clear. Then I am not only running, I am standing. And I am not standing alone. Paul met her gaze, and in that moment a bond was forged. The truth was no longer hidden. It had been revealed. And with it came a storm that would test both human courage and alien power. Outside the station, the stars remained silent, but the path ahead was no longer the same. The princess had spoken. The humans had answered, and the galaxy would soon hear their voices. The outpost had never felt so heavy with silence. The royal guards had left, but their promise still hung in the air like a storm cloud. They would return, and when they did, it would not be 4 soldiers knocking on the door. It would be many, and they would not speak politely next time. Paul stood at the center of the mess hall, his hands braced against the table. Around him, the crew and traders argued in tense voices. Some wanted to hand Lyra over before things grew worse. Others agreed with Paul but feared what resistance might bring. This station was built for trade, not war, said Joran, one of the older traders. We have only a few old cannons. If they come back with a ship, we cannot stand against them. Mira, arms crossed, looked at Paul. You want us to fight, but how long before they bring a fleet? You saw their eyes. They will not stop, Paul nodded. I know, but handing her over is worse. If what she says is true, then returning her is the same as giving her people to chains. Do you want to live with that on your hands? The room grew quiet. No one met his eyes. Lyra sat at the edge of the table, the translator resting in her lap. Her glowing fingers brushed over its surface as if steadying herself. She finally spoke through the device, her voice calm but carrying deep weight. I will not ask you to fight for me. I can run again. I can hide. Paul turned to her sharply. No, running ends when someone decides to stand. You came to humans because you believed we were different. If we let you keep running, then we are no better than the ones who chase you. Her glowing eyes widened. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she lowered her head slightly as if accepting his words. The decision was made that night. The outpost would not hand her over. They would resist. The next morning, the crew gathered in the docking bay. Paul stood on a crate, tools hanging from his belt, while Mira checked the old weapons mounted on the outer walls. The traders grumbled but did not leave. Even they knew leaving would not save them now. The guards had seen their faces. If they tried to flee, they might be hunted anyway. Paul looked around at the tired, worried faces. These were not soldiers. They were mechanics, medics, and wanderers. Yet here they were, preparing for a fight against royal soldiers. We are human, Paul said, his voice steady. We don't have fleets or palaces. We don't have kings or queens. But what we do have is stubbornness. We fight with what we have, and what we have is enough. He pointed to the ships docked in the hangar. These traders' ships may be old, but they can move. We will use them. We have mining charges. We will use those too. Everything here can be turned into something useful. We are Deathworlders, whether the galaxy likes it or not. That means we make weapons out of scraps and victory out of nothing. The crew straightened at his words. Fear still lingered, but pride began to spark. For the next 2 days, the station became a hive of activity. Paul led the effort to reinforce the walls, reroute power to shields, and mount the few working cannons they had. Mira organized supplies and patched wounds from past skirmishes. Even the traders joined, rigging their ships with makeshift weapons and traps. Lyra moved among them quietly, watching every detail. Sometimes she helped with small tasks, handing tools or carrying wires, but her main role was speaking. She told them about her people, about how the foreign king had lied, and about the danger of silence. Her words spread through the crew like fire, giving meaning to their work. They were not just protecting her. They were protecting the right of a people to choose freedom. At night, Paul often found her staring at the stars through the observation window. He would join her and they would talk. She spoke of green skies and rivers of glass. He spoke of Earth, the home most of them had never seen but always carried in their hearts. Why humans? Paul asked one night. Why not run to another empire? To someone stronger? Lyra's translator spoke softly. Strength without spirit is useless. Humans are different. You bend, but you do not break. You fight even when you should not win. I needed that. Paul looked at her glowing eyes and nodded. He understood. On the 3rd day, the alarm rang again. The sensors lit up with the shape of a larger vessel moving into orbit. Its markings were the same as before, but its size was greater. "They are back," Mira said grimly. The crew rushed to positions. Traders sealed their ships. Paul activated the shields, though they flickered from age. Lyra stood at the center of the mess hall, holding the translator tightly. The docking bay doors rattled. The knock on the door had returned, louder this time. The voice of the guard captain came through the speakers, colder than before. "Outpost humans, you have made a mistake. Give us the princess or we will burn this place to the ground." Paul pressed the comm button. "We made our choice. She stays." A pause followed, then the sound of weapons powering up. The battle began. The first strike shook the station. The shields flickered, holding but weak. Cannons on the outer hull fired back, their blasts clumsy but fierce. Traders' ships launched, circling the larger vessel like angry hornets. Paul directed the defense, shouting orders, rerouting power, and keeping systems alive with quick repairs. His hands moved as fast as his mind. His mechanics skill now turned into strategy. Mira treated the injured as blasts shook the walls. She kept calm, her voice steady as she wrapped wounds and gave strength where fear tried to take it. Lyra stood in the command room, watching in silence at first. But then she lifted the translator and spoke into the comms. Her voice echoed through the system. "I am Princess Lyra. Hear my truth. I ran not to betray my people, but to protect them. The king who seeks me is a liar. He wants power, not peace. Do not believe his promise. Believe my words. Believe the humans who stand with me." Her message carried out on every frequency, bouncing from ship to ship. Traders, travelers, and even other stations nearby heard her voice. It spread faster than the guards could silence. The royal guards grew desperate. Their leader shouted through comms, "Silence her! Destroy the humans!" But the humans fought harder. Paul guided one trader ship to slam into the guard vessel's flank, releasing mining charges that tore holes in its armor. Another crew used scrap metal as shrapnel, blasting it into docking bays. Every trick, every tool became a weapon. The guards had numbers and training, but the humans had something different. They had nothing to lose but their pride, and they refused to let that be taken. Hours passed like minutes. The station shook, but it did not fall. Finally, the larger guard vessel began to retreat. Its hull smoked, engines failing. The humans had not destroyed it, but they had made it bleed. The guards could not risk more losses, not with Lyra's message spreading through the stars. The ship pulled away into the dark. The station was silent again, but this time the silence was filled with relief. Cheers erupted across the crew. Traders hugged. Mechanics clapped one another on the back, and Mira smiled despite her exhaustion. Paul leaned against a wall, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His body ached, but his spirit burned with pride. They had faced the impossible and stood their ground. Lyra walked toward him, her translator still in hand. She stopped only a step away, her glowing eyes locked on his. "You fought for me." Her voice came softly through the device. "No king, no queen, just you. Just humans. Why?" Paul met her gaze. "Because humans don't bow to threats. Because freedom matters. And because you asked." Her lips curved into the smallest, most fragile smile. For the first time since she had arrived, her fear seemed lighter. That night, as the crew celebrated, Paul and Lyra stood by the observation window. Outside, the stars glittered as if they had witnessed the fight themselves. The knock on the door had come. Humanity had answered, and the galaxy was beginning to listen. The stars hung silently outside the outpost as the crew worked through the aftermath of the battle. Smoke and sparks still drifted from damaged equipment, and the hum of machinery felt louder in the quiet night. The station was bruised, scratched, and worn, but it had not fallen. Humans had stood where others expected them to fail. Paul moved through the corridors, checking the weapons, repairing the shields, and making sure the crew was ready for whatever came next. Mira followed, carrying medical supplies. The traders were busy patching their ships, securing cargo, and keeping watch. Even the youngest crew members were ready to stand if needed. But Paul's focus was on Lyra. She had returned to the command room, sitting on a crate with her glowing fingers resting on the translator. She had spoken to the galaxy during the fight, and her voice had carried far beyond the station. The echoes of her message were spreading to allies and enemies alike. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes full of uncertainty. "They will come again. They will not forget this. They may bring fleets next time," Paul nodded. "Then we will be ready. But we do not fight alone. Your voice reached farther than you know. Others are listening, and some may join us when they hear the truth." Her gaze softened. "I never imagined humans could fight like this. Not for me, not for someone they do not even know. Humans fight for what is right," Paul said simply. "We do not need to know you to know that freedom is worth standing for." Lyra nodded. Her glowing skin shimmered faintly in the dim light. For the first time, she allowed herself a deep breath. The following day, Paul organized a communication relay. The idea was simple: broadcast Lyra's voice to as many systems as possible, showing the truth of her escape and the lies of the foreign king. With the old transmitters and rerouted power, the message traveled faster than anyone could have imagined. Lyra spoke into the translator, her voice calm but powerful. "I am Princess Lyra of the Zorathian Empire. I did not leave my home to betray it. I left because I could not allow my people to be enslaved by a king who lies. Hear me and know that I stand for truth. I have chosen humans as my allies because they do not bow to false promises. If my people value freedom, they will join me, and they will know that humanity does not surrender." The message repeated automatically through the system, and Paul watched as lights flickered on consoles. Traders in nearby systems received it. Pilots passed it along as they traveled. Stations far away picked it up and relayed it. Soon, Lyra's voice was known across the rim of human space and beyond. The crew of the outpost listened to her words, feeling pride swell in their chests. They had built something greater than any weapon, a message of courage and hope. Hours later, the warning lights flashed again. This time, the approaching ships were not as close, and they seemed hesitant. The scouts reported smaller fleets, as if the Empire was reconsidering. Paul walked to Lyra's side. "They are listening," he said. "They can hear your truth, and they are thinking. What we did today matters more than any fight." Lyra nodded. "And if they attack anyway?" Paul smiled faintly. "Then we fight. But we will not fight alone. Your message has reached ears that may help. Humans are stubborn, and the galaxy is starting to see it." That night, the outpost held a quiet celebration. The crew shared food, patched wounds, and laughed despite the tension. Lyra sat among them, her translator on her lap, sharing stories of her childhood, the palace, and her people's customs. She spoke of floating gardens, crystal towers, and music that could travel through the wind. Paul listened, fascinated. He had spent years on the edge of known space, fixing machines and living a simple life. Now he was part of something much bigger, a story of freedom and courage. Mira approached him. "You know this is only the beginning. The Empire may return stronger this time." Paul nodded. "I know, but so will we. Humans survive because we adapt. We fight because we must, and we protect those who need it because it is right." He looked at Lyra, who had stopped speaking for a moment, watching the stars through the observation window. "Do you understand now why I helped you?" he asked. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with gratitude and something deeper. "Yes," she said softly through the translator. "Because humans are more than strength or weapons. You are courage and spirit. You are freedom." The next morning, scouts reported activity near the outer systems. Ships with the markings of the foreign king moved cautiously, but they did not attack immediately. Instead, messages arrived from unexpected sources. Other alien systems had intercepted Lyra's broadcast, questioning the king's promises. Some fleets had even withdrawn their support. The outpost crew listened to the reports in awe. Lyra's voice had done what weapons could not. Her truth had changed minds. Paul placed a hand on her shoulder. "See? Your words are stronger than their swords." Lyra smiled faintly. "And humans gave me the courage to speak them." "You did not bend. You did not bow. That is why they will listen," Paul nodded. "We do not bow. That is what makes humans different. And that is why we survive where others fall." Days passed. The royal guards did not return immediately. Their ships remained on the edge of human space, but their advance was slowed by other systems now questioning the king's authority. Lyra's broadcast had reached farther than anyone could predict. Inside the station, life returned to a careful routine. Ships were repaired, supplies replenished, and the crew remained vigilant, but there was a new feeling among them, a quiet confidence. They had faced something far larger than themselves and had stood. Lyra joined them in daily activities, helping wherever she could. She learned to operate simple tools, listened to the crew's stories, and sometimes offered advice based on her knowledge of other worlds. Paul noticed she smiled more often now, her fear replaced by determination. One evening, Lyra and Paul stood together at the observation window. Below them, the outpost's lights flickered gently. Above, stars stretched endlessly. "Paul," Lyra said softly through the translator, "I do not know what will happen next. My mother may still send forces. The king may still try to capture me." Paul nodded. "I know, but we will face it. Humans do not give up. We do not surrender, and you will not face it alone." She looked at him, her glowing skin reflecting the starlight. "Then I will speak. I will fight, not just for myself, but for those who cannot." Paul smiled. "That is the human way. And now, you are part of it too." Weeks later, messages arrived from alien systems that had joined in support. Small fleets emboldened by Lyra's broadcast and human defiance began to challenge the king's forces in the outer territories. The Zarathian Empire could no longer act freely. Its lies had been exposed. Lyra's people began to hear the truth. Those who had feared the king and the queen started questioning the stories they had been told. Rebellion began not through weapons but through words and courage. Paul watched this unfold with pride. Humanity had done what it did best: stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds, protect the innocent, and use every scrap of skill and courage to make a difference. Lyra, standing beside him, felt hope for the first time. She was no longer just a runaway princess. She was a symbol, and humans, stubborn and unyielding, had helped her become one. In that moment, the outpost was quiet. Not with fear, but with the calm of victory. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had once again shown its power, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to bow. The princess smiled, and for the first time in her life, she felt safe. She looked at Paul and whispered through the translator, "Thank you. You and your people. You gave me hope." Paul replied simply, "Humans always fight for hope, and we never give up." Outside, the stars continued to shine. Ships moved through space, carrying messages, courage, and the promise of freedom. Humanity had answered, and the galaxy would remember. The silent alien girl had found her voice. Humanity had made it stand, and together, they had changed the course of worlds.